So welcome. We're here to talk about hands-on food. Simone and I will be the presenters today, and Madison will be our tech person. So if you have any questions, if anything's not really working properly, feel free to send a message to Madison. So here we go. Awesome. So my name is Addie DeCandle. I'm a BC elementary teacher. I teach grade 2 right now. And I have been with Farm to School for 7 years. I recently left the position, but this was a huge part of my job. So we wanted to stay on and share it with you. And if there's any questions about the resource in the future, I just have the new food literacy advisors contact. So it's foodliteracy@farmtoschoolbc.ca. And I will pass it over to Simone.
Hi, everyone. My name is Simone Jennings. I'm a registered dietitian, and I work as a public health dietitian with Interior Health. And my area of focus is supporting school districts across the Interior Health region. I also work doing consultation with the Ministry of Health on resources, and specifically food literacy resources and information that comes out for the school population. And yeah, in my role, I work as a public health dietitian and had the pleasure of working with Addie on this hands-on food resource over the past number of years. And we're excited to share it with you guys today.
So before we get too far into the resource, which we're happy to share, we would just like to acknowledge our traditional territory. So I'm joining today from the Lekwungen speaking peoples, a Songhees and Esquimalt nations in Victoria, BC. But this project started in School District 73, which is on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories of the Secwepemc territory, where the land has been lived on and cared for since time immemorial. So you're welcome to share with the territory that you're joining from today in our chat. It's really nice to see where everybody is from. So this is a picture of balsam root, arrowleaf balsam root. And this is a really important food source for the people, the Secwepemc people, and have been for thousands of years. So if you can dig it up and use the root, and it was often pit cooked, which makes it a really starchy sweet, kind of like a potato, but especially when it's pit cooked, not necessarily steamed, I've learned. But there's something about the long, slow roasting that makes it really sweet. And it's a beautiful to see these pop this time of year. So I'm going to share a pronunciation for the moons, which has been really interesting to learn about, learning about how time changes and what foods we can source that time of year. So I'll share it in the chat. I'm not very good at pronouncing the pronunciation for April. And that's a really cool way to know, okay, if the snow is melting, the balsam root is coming out, and you know, it's time that more food is going to be growing here. So it's a little bit from the Secwepemc territory. Thank you everybody for sharing with us where you're from today. So we'll get into the acknowledgements of our project now. I'll pass this back over to Simone.
Thanks, Addie. So I just want to start by acknowledging that Hands-on Food has been a community collaboration between Interior Health, School District 73, Farm to School BC, and the Public Health Association of BC. The project leads for the development of the resource include myself and Addie DeCandle, here, my colleague here on the call with us today, my co-presenter. And as Addie said, she's a BC teacher and the former Farm to School food literacy advisor. And also our colleague Sherry Stoddy, who's the former health promoting school coordinator for School District 73. Sherry is involved with the project for a number of years, but she had the privilege of retiring last year. I'd also like to acknowledge and express our deep appreciation for the many teachers and community organizations that have been involved with piloting lessons in their classrooms, testing recipes, supporting school food literacy activities that helped inform the development of this resource. We'd especially like to acknowledge Mount Paul Community Food Center, Thompson Rivers University, the City of Kamloops, and the Kamloops Food Policy Council for their support and engagement during the development of the hands-on food resource. So about today, so for the next sort of 50 minutes or so, we are going to be telling you about the hands-on food resource, and we'll cover how the lessons offer experiential learning with food and they connect to the BC curriculum. We'll discuss how hands-on food lessons are grounded in evidence-based best practices for teaching and talking about food and nutrition. And we'll give you a tour of the website to showcase where to find key information and show you what the lesson plans look like. Then we'll have time for questions at the end. And at the very end, we're inviting BC educators to participate in a chance to win cash prizes to try out hands-on food lessons at your school. So if you are involved with a BC school or an educator here in BC, please don't sign off early. We have 4 prizes. The top 3 prizes include $200 for your school to try out hands-on food lessons. And this comes with a 45-minute consultation with myself to support you in your planning and choosing lessons that will best suit your classroom. And the 4th prize doesn't involve any money, unfortunately, but we are offering another 45-minute food literacy consultation that would discuss any planning or implementing of lessons in your classroom, looking for grant opportunities, and answering any questions you might have. So we just want to start by telling you guys how we got started with hands-on food and where this project originated from. So since 2011 in School District 73 and across the interior region, schools have been offering the Cook It, Try It, Like It program. Some of you might be familiar with this. This is an interior health program that was developed in partnership with School District 73, School District 73. Again, a partnership between myself and our local health promoting school coordinators. It's a 5-week after-school cooking program. And over the years of implementing this program, it was identified that there was a demand to offer food skill and food preparation lessons in the classroom. So while the after-school program was successful in many schools, there were also limitations, particularly for rural schools where students have long bus rides after school, making it difficult to participate in after-school programs. Also, during this time, the Farm to School program was growing in our interior region, and it was becoming more popular with more schools participating in the Farm to School activities. So with this, we were getting more requests for food literacy resources that can be and activities that could be done in classrooms during instructional time. So we realized developing lessons for teachers to use in the classroom was a way to reach more students than in the after-school setting. It was also a way to complement the activities that schools were already doing in their farm to school programs. We had schools that had school gardens, and indoor growing activities and more. And we had teachers requesting ways to add in food preparation, preservation, and to teach concepts in food waste. So we decided to develop lesson plans to teach food skills and food system concepts in the elementary school classrooms. Also during this time, food literacy was a key priority for School District 73. So we were able to partner on grant opportunities and work with teachers to pilot lessons, gain student feedback, feedback from teacher and administrators, and even work with educators who had specialized knowledge in the BC curriculum. So, and then we eventually, we also officially partnered with Farm to School BC to expand the reach of our project beyond the interior region. So now I'm going to turn it over to Addie to tell us more specifics about the hands-on food resource.
Awesome. So you might know a little bit about this project already, but basically what it is it's ready to use lesson plans. Like we've all had that experience where we're like, great, we're going to make pumpkin muffins with my class. So you go online, you find a recipe, and it's one recipe for 12 kids. And you're like, I don't understand how to now do this with my class. We all have that same experience. So what we did is we took all of these teachers who were already doing all these awesome things, as Simone said, and as C73, and we wanted to share it out. So how can you do food literacy with your class? We have these lesson plans ready for you. So it's all connected to the BC curriculum. They are ready to print off for you to use tomorrow. We've targeted to grades 4 to 7. Because it's the kind of intermediate zone is when you can hand children knives and they'll be pretty good with them, but they're adaptable for all ages. So you can check out the difficulty scale when we get into the website a little bit, and you can see, oh, I could totally do this with my kindies, or you can do this in grade 12. But in terms of curriculum, we've really targeted at the grades 4 to 7. So what we're really looking at is all parts of the food system. So the 4 modules, we have all the way from growing to cooking and preserving and not wasting. So cook it and preserve it, grow it, don't waste it are the order they're in on the website. All parts of the food system. So you can choose one lesson to do, or you can do it all year long, whatever is going to work for your school and your teaching style, and what equipment you have access to, of course. But maybe you want a prize and you get to buy more things for your school today. So in terms of curriculum, we always need to be thinking about this, of course, as teachers. So these food literacy lessons are really in these 5 key subjects. So physical health education is lots of food literacy is already in the curriculum, and we've pulled that out. Math, there's so much math in recipes. If you're doubling the recipe, having the recipe, fractions, you're measuring, counting, any pattern work, so fun to do for math. Science, you can be looking at predictions. Simone's come up with some really cool activities like dancing raisins and baking soda. Really fun to go up and down. ADST, it's awesome to do through food. If you think of the last time you made a smoothie, maybe you threw in some bananas and strawberries. What's your prediction? What color is the smoothie going to turn? It's pink. Awesome. Then you add some fresh spinach. Maybe it'll turn green. That's so cool. That's that prototyping and testing. And you can, you could do a whole unit based on smoothie making. So fun. English language arts, lots of reading, recipes, writing, doing any reflections, any journal work. All of this we love to cook and grow, it's all in the curriculum. So we have all of those on our website pulled out right for you. So you don't have to go digging through the curriculum to justify any of this. It's in there, we promise. So this is just a screenshot of our website. So when you go into the home page, the second tab is curriculum connections, and they're all on the same page. So you can just scroll down and see, I need my ADST or my science, whatever connections you need to make. It's all there for you.
Okay, I'm going to jump back in. And I'm going to take over and talk a little bit about how this links to teaching nutrition and some of those aspects of the physical health and education curriculum, and also evidence-based practices for teaching nutrition. So our hands-on food lessons are grounded in evidence-based practices for teaching and talking about food and nutrition to children. It complements the Ministry of Health's Teach Food First resource. And our lessons use experiential learning with food to promote a positive relationship with food and support acceptance of new foods. We recognize that teaching about nutrients to young children generally does not have a significant impact on their food choices. So instead, we promote creating food exposures through experiential learning. So I like this quote by Ellen Satter. Ellen Satter is a registered dietitian and a family therapist who's considered a leading expert in childhood feeding and eating. And this quote is a good reminder of the ultimate goal of food nutrition education for children, and the quote is that the overall goal is to support children with developing a positive relationship with food, not to get them to eat their peas for supper. So when we're doing food exposure or cooking or food preparation skills in the classroom, it's not about influencing what a child puts in their mouth today or tomorrow. It's actually about building the skills and attitude towards food that will support long-term healthy behaviors. So what is a positive relationship with food? This means meeting your body's individual nutrition needs by eating a variety of foods, having meals and snacks throughout the day, eating when you're hungry, and stopping when you're full. It also means being able to enjoy all foods without guilt or shame, eating foods that are nourishing and make you feel good, enjoying meals with others, eating foods that are important to your culture, traditions, and celebrations, and being in tune with your body's cues for hunger, thirst, satiety, mood, and other signals. So I also just want to touch on creating an inclusive learning environment when we're working with food. And this is because it's important to recognize that each student may have different personal experiences with food, and they will have varying home contexts related to finances, food availability, supports, and culture. Classrooms may also include students who experience food insecurity, who are at risk for disordered eating, who have selective eating due to neurodiversities, allergies, other medical reasons, and other factors that I haven't even spoken to. So when we teach and talk about food in the classroom, it's very important to start by reflecting on our own relationship with food and our own food experiences and how this has shaped our individual ideas about nutrition and our individual ideas of what is a healthy food. I'm going to put healthy food in quotation. So we need to remember that the term healthy food is subjective, and what is healthy for one person might not be healthy for another person. And with this in mind, we can reflect on how our words can have different interpretations depending on the context. And overall, when we're speaking to children, we want to avoid labeling foods as things like junk, treats, or bad, etc. Doing this can inadvertently shame a child's household foods. And furthermore, we want to remember that food selection is an adult role, and the factors that largely influence food selection, such as finances, food access, and culture, are outside of a child's control. So instead, we can talk about food in a neutral way, calling all foods by their individual names and describing their characteristics, such as an apple is an apple, chips are chips. This doesn't mean, though, that all foods are nutritious or equally nutritious. We recognize that some foods have more nutrient than others, and of course, some foods are better at helping us feel full and be more prepared to learn. But there are age-appropriate ways to discuss nutrition-specific concepts, and this is particularly becomes more appropriate with older students. But the evidence shows that focusing on food exploration and inspiring curiosity about food and creating opportunities for students to have positive experience with food has a greater influence on food acceptance and health behaviors than does teaching about nutrients specifically. So this might look like teaching food preparation skills, learning to read recipes, planting seeds, growing seedlings, many of the things that Addie has already mentioned. And of course, for older students, as we get into even older elementary grades, we can talk about, or we can engage in activities to learn meal planning skills or have kids involved in their local school food programs or community food programs. So all of those things can really support the approach we're trying to take to food and nutrition education. And this slide, again, just further depicts that. So when we're delivering nutrition education by focusing on food, we call this food-based learning. You've also heard us use the term food literacy. And again, the reason for taking a food-first approach is that children are concrete thinkers, and it's not until about the age of 12 that they start to understand those more abstract concepts, like what is a nutrient, what role does it have in the body, and being able to think about long-term health impacts. And I would say that happens even much older, being able to imagine how the foods you're eating today might influence your health in 20 years. So it's just important to put this all into the context that, you know, we are speaking, not how we're talking as adults to each other, but when we're talking to kids, we do vary our approach. And like learning to read, learning to eat a variety of foods is a process, and each child learns at their own pace. Children learn best by doing and by engaging their senses and their curiosity. So building food skills and familiarity with a variety of foods is the best way that nutrition education can support students to feel positive about eating and learn to enjoy nutritious foods over time. And I really want to stress that over time piece, because when we're doing any activities with food, I think there's a temptation to really encourage or pressure kids to eat the food at the end of the activity or whatever you've made. And of course, that's something we want to avoid. That pressure-free environment is what really helps inspire food acceptance. Okay, so I am going to move us on to the website tour portion of our webinar. So I'm just going to stop sharing my screen and do a reshare. I think that looks better. Okay, so when you come to our hands-on food website, which is handsonfood.ca, what you see is you'll land on our homepage here. So I encourage you to scroll through and check it out, which I won't do right now. But I just want to start by pointing out our tabs at the top. Of course, we have our home tab. And under our home tab is where you'll find basically all the sort of background information and supporting information that you would need as an educator to be prepared to deliver hands-on food lessons in the classroom. And then here at the top, you'll see there's 4 more tabs that cover each of our four modules: the cook it, preserve it, grow it, and don't waste it modules of the hands-on food resource. So I suggest starting here at the Get Started button. And this takes you to our About page. So you can also navigate to here under our Home tab. You just want to scroll down and we have this great Getting Started section, which walks you through all the key pieces of information you would need, that like supporting information that I talked about for delivering any of these lessons. We acknowledge that doing food preparation or growing activities with a full class of students, or any of this stuff where it like really involves a bit more like supplies or equipment, is a more challenging activity for a teacher. So we're really aiming to break down the barriers as much as possible to be able to deliver this type of education by providing hopefully the key information you would need to get started. So we have, you can link here to more information about what I was talking about around the teaching nutrition to feel comfortable with that, the language there. The curricular connections are linked here. Food safety information is linked here. And we have a budget calculator. So for instance, if you wanted to plan to maybe do a unit or of lessons, and where we're looking to apply for a grant, even considering our farm to school grants in the fall, a budget calculator you can find the equipment needed for any of the different lessons, and you could look on there to see what it might cost to pull together some equipment and food supplies. And then we have a suggested place to get started with our knife skills lesson. So now I'm just going to click us onto the Cook It tab and show you what you'll find here. So when we're on this page, this is where you'll find our lessons and recipes for food preparation. We have this difficulty scale. Our lessons are organized by preparation difficulty. This is not really like how difficult it is for the students to do per se. This is actually sort of more related to like, there's, the more experienced, the 3 apple recipes or lessons might require more equipment, possibly access to an oven, or take a bit more time. And then we, obviously there's the beginner and intermediate lessons, which are slightly less difficulty. I'll pull up our knife skills lesson plan just to show you what a lesson plan looks like. So our lesson plans have, they all have a similar template where they follow this overview of this information, which includes, we have an overview of each lesson, an approximate cost. Don't want people to get too daunted by the cost. It is very approximate because there's a lot of variability into the different ingredients you might choose in some of our lessons. They're fairly flexible. And you'll find a grocery shopping list, an equipment list, all the information, background information a teacher would need to do any one of our lessons. So including things like food safety. And in here, there's a knife skills video, which a teacher could watch themselves or show to their whole class. It's just a short, like a really great video about knife skills and handling knives. Every lesson has information about what you'll need to do before the class, so classroom setup and any preparation and things you need to have on hand. And then it jumps into the lesson plan, where you'll see we have the learning outcomes, key things you'll need to cover in your lesson, and a reflection period. So even though this is a knife skills lesson, I just want to show this could even be done starting in kindergarten age. So like we said, they're targeted to grades 4 to 7. But you can teach knife skills to like K to 3 age students by using a plastic knife and modeling clay or soft foods like bananas. And this is still a really essential food skill to know how to properly handle a knife and chop. And I would say this applies into older grades because I know plenty of students in the high school age who actually don't properly know how to do knife handling skills. So just back to our website, I'll just give you one more example, just to show you another lesson, our smoothie lesson. You'll find the lesson plan. There's also a separate recipe. This comes with an extension activity. Where in the world does my food come from? So this is learning. You could do this lesson totally independently. That would take no preparation or no costs or ingredients, but it's just learning about how to read labels to locate where in the world that food came from, and then having discussions about critical thinking about where our food comes from. There's worksheets for different grade ranges, K to 2 worksheet to create I'll just open it up. This is a create your own smoothie recipe. It's a cut and paste activity where you can paste your favorite ingredients or your own recipe into the blender. And then it's a worksheet for older kids. I'm going to take us to the preserve it section. So this is great for anyone who's starting to plan for the fall, people who might have access to a local gleaning program, or even if you have a backyard fruit tree, or ways like you're someone who might come into access to a box of apples or plums in the fall. You can find some activities that you could do with larger quantities of food. So we have 2 topics in here, learning skills in food preservation through dehydrating, and then learning skills in food preservation through freezing. Just going to scroll back up to our dry it section for a moment and point out that while this can require, you can have a dehydrator if you had one at home or you wanted to get a grant to purchase one for your classroom. That's an option, but our lessons all have the option, detailed methods to do dehydrating at a low temperature in an oven. And then even our dried herbs, this is like a super low barrier activity where you shows the option to do it in the microwave, and then gives ideas of how to make like homemade gifts. So like maybe a fun Mother's Day activity or something, you could make teas or spice packets with dried herbs. And then of course on the website it gives some background information in dehydrating, and there's even an activity which could again be done independently around traditional ways of preserving food. So getting people to learn, older kids can research traditional food preservation methods. We have our grow it section, which is as it sounds, this is growing food. And there's some excellent lessons in here, some easier ones like the 1 apple lessons, where doing things like creating seed bombs, and edible weeds lessons, with excellent information to get you started and get kids exploring outdoors. We have an activity for creating windowsill gardens, little herb gardens on the windowsill that could be done in class. Largely supplies could be pulled from a recycling bin to do this activity. And then we have these are a bit more complex units. Addie put together some really great units for planting and growing salad greens. So you can see it's a multi-week unit. I'll just quickly click to our don't waste it section. Here we've found there was already some great information that existed. So this is just linking to sites and lesson plans that already existed for educating students on food waste. And this is not our video, but I won't play it, but I encourage people to check it out if you want to talk about, demonstrate to kids the food system and the concepts in food waste. This is a really impactful short video about the life of a strawberry that shows it from it growing all the way till it's thrown in the garbage at the end. Spoiler alert, it goes in the garbage, but it's an excellent example of all the things that go into growing a strawberry, all the resources, and then kind of gets you thinking critically about what is really wasted when you throw away food. That ends our website tour. I'm gonna get us back into our PowerPoint presentation.
If anybody has any questions, please feel free to type it in the chat and then we'll go over them.
Thanks, Addie, for reminding us that. We're actually at our question period, so happy to answer questions.
Or feel free to unmute yourselves, or
yeah,
you can
raise your hand.
raise your hand, and then you can make sure folks aren't each other. So if you go down to the reactions at the bottom of the screen, there's like a little happy face with a plus. You can click on that and it says raise hand. So you can do that to raise and lower your hand. Caitlin.
Hi there. So I was the grade 5 teacher asking about the parent-friendly resources. So I have a student with Down syndrome who has food selectivity, and there's a lot of limited language. So the language at home being used is healthy and unhealthy, and we're trying to pivot a little bit more at school. So I was wondering around parent resources or parent accessible resources to challenge the parents and encourage them to like expand their own vocabulary when they're talking about food.
That's a great question. Off the top of my head, they could certainly go to the resources we're recommending to educators. I would suggest the Teach Food First website. Because it gives, so it's teachfoodfirst.ca. On there, it goes through these guiding principles and gives like specifics. I mean, it is developed as a resource to educators, but if you're kind of having a direct relationship with them, you might be able to, you know, help them understand how this context applies in general to how we talk to kids. Then there is on there like teaching, you know, tips for talking to students, and like instead of this, try this, like actual language to use tips. I also just did a webinar yesterday that was recorded that goes where we go a little bit more into depth into some of this teaching nutrition concepts and theory that and the language we use. I'd be happy to, if you want to direct message me, or you'll get my emails coming up at the end. You could certainly shoot me an email. I'd be happy to delve into that more with you through an email conversation and see if I can get you some good resources to help out with that.
Okay, thank you so much.
This webinar is being recorded and it will be shared on our website. Just looking through the chat.
All right, Kaylee's got her hand up.
As you say, I can jump in. So I work with educators who are mostly working with secondary students. So first of all, this is awesome. And, you know, as you said, it can be flexed up and down. So I have two questions. One is there any plans for any resources for higher grades? But then my second question was kind of similar to the other teacher. We have, when we hire folks to come and work for us, is there any resources you recommend for teaching our educators, like how, like I love what you're saying about like how to talk about food, or just any of those, like how to approach these topics kind of so that when they go into the classroom, we're just making sure educators have the right tone when we're talking about food. So
I'm gonna pull up, I'll put a link in the chat and I'll just show you guys this website I'm talking about. It's called, sorry, the way my screen is. Hopefully you guys can see this. So this is a website. I was also involved in the development of this resource led by the Ministry of Health. It's an educator's toolkit for exploring Canada's food guide with K to 8. And I know you did mention the older kids too. So obviously there are some nuances how we talk about nutrition as things age. But if we're looking for just a great resource to help sort of summarize some of those things you want to consider, like even regardless of age, older kids too can be experiencing food insecurity. We have to be sensitive to kids who might be at risk for eating disorders and all these things. This website, there's a short video that describes the resource, but if you go into here, can you see here the guiding principles, and they go through like key sort of guiding principles for educators when you're teaching about food nutrition. And I think this would be a good starting place to direct people to. And I know that it is like, it's probably a ways out just yet, but it's on like up and coming on the Ministry of Health. Sometimes they guide some of our more provincial resources around these like broader approaches. They're hoping to do a 9 to 12 resource, a higher resource. But again, you feel free to email me, like, because I can come up with some direct you to some specific ones I could think of.
For sure. Thank you. This is a great resource, by the way. Thanks so much.
Do we have another question? I'll also mention on the Hands on Food website, there's a teaching nutrition section. It references the guiding principles. It gives a little overview, and it links back to the Teach Food First website. So we're very complementary. I was involved in the development of both of those websites, so we work to kind of have a consistent approach. So you can find all that information even by navigating through our Hands on Food website.
Suzanne's wondering for preschool age. I know Vancouver Coastal Health has one for preschoolers. I remember seeing that a little while ago. Simone, do you know?
Yeah, well, I'm wondering, Suzanne, do you mean, would you recommend some of these like hands-on lessons for preschool age? Is that what you mean? Linda's wrote Appetite for Play. Yeah, for hands-on, for some of our hands-on lessons, if that's what you mean, like what you saw in the Cook It section, there definitely some of these can be adapted to preschool age. I just as a parent volunteer made smoothies with my son's class when he was at preschool age. I'm going to go into the Cook It section. Yeah, we just had a blender, and kids could add different foods to the blender. Obviously, you know, in a preschool setting, there's a lot more adults. The adult to kid ratio is higher, so sometimes that actually can be quite helpful for doing some of these activities. Also making trail mix. This is just basically ingredient assembly, so you can get a variety of ingredients and have kids picking and choosing and assembling and exploring foods that way. And food art's also another really fun one. So this one can be adaptable. It can do it for older grades. That would involve like actual cutting and knife skills with food, but you can also just use foods that don't involve any cutting, berries and soft like bananas and other things, and kids can still be doing like making an art project, but they get to eat their food at the end, and it's a really fun food exploration project or activity. So yeah, a number of these can work well. And again, like I said, the knife skills, I think you can start teaching knife skills to kids at the age of 3 and 4 years old with like a butter knife or a plastic knife and some Play-Doh or a banana or an avocado.
My 2-year-old really likes chopping mushrooms lately. So I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
They're all different sizes, but that's fine. Yeah, this food art lesson is super fun. We've done it a couple of times, and Simone's run it, you know, a few times in the last little while. We weren't taught to play with our food, you know, but if kids are like touching new foods and smelling them, like if they're touching cilantro and they've always refused to, or tomatoes, like all of these things that it's about the relationship with foods, you know, it's really encouraging happy memories, you know. Yeah.
So I see Rachel has a comment. As a collaborative organization, we have the elementary age kids for approximately 30 minutes once per week in a school garden setting. We can have access to a kitchen. The challenge is enough time. Do you think some of the lessons could be split into 2 lessons? Yeah, I think absolutely. I think we have some of those like extension activities as well, like also so some of those more simple things, like I said, like trail mix or something you can do quite quickly. Even food art, I think you could do a simple version in 30 minutes or less. But some of our things, even like our egg cups here, we have this extension activity, which is a science experiment, which is this, you know, where you dissolve the eggshell in vinegar. And so this is something that you could do on one day and then see the results at another day. Same with some of those dehydrating lessons where maybe you're doing the prep, like they get to chop maybe something like apples or whatnot that you're going to dehydrate, and you put it in the dehydrator, but then the results are the next time you do it in the oven once they're gone, but the results, they get to see the end result the next time they come to class. So
Thank
yeah,
you. That's great.
Yeah, I encourage you to just take a look through the lessons and see what you think could fit your setting. Naomi says she was looking through the website and noticed there's no information or links to Indigenous meals, plants, or harvesting practices. This could be done for each region. That's a really great observation, Naomi, and you're not wrong. We do link under our resources. If you go, just making sure you can all see me. So under resources, under grow it in the, sorry, where did we put it? Yeah, so under other, so on our home link, you go to resources, other. Kremstein Health Society has this great series that we've linked to. And we, during this work, like some of our lessons, a number of our recipes and lessons, while they're not Indigenous specific, like we did, we had the opportunity to work with and pilot with them in some classrooms that were with Indigenous, like First Nations students, but we didn't feel we had the capacity or expertise to really adequately reflect that. And there was some work being done on Indigenous specific resources by people that we felt were best positioned to do that work. So it doesn't have that specific lens, but we're certainly open to adding those resources in time. The website's not finite, and there's certainly opportunity to add more resources in time. We feel like we've got a starting point here. So yeah, we're certainly open to that, but we do really try to link to places where people really have that expertise, and we're able to work directly with Indigenous elders. And also on the Teach Food First website, there is a component of Indigenous knowledge shared there. So I recommend those two places. And certainly if you have like specific information to share, Naomi, feel free to send it our way. Okay. What do you think, Addie? Can we
Yeah.
We're
if
gonna
anybody has any other questions, but we will
yeah, feel free to, you can add a question in the chat, and if there's time at the very end, we'll circle back. Addie's going to just sort of do a soft close for us, but if you're an educator who wants to or is capable of doing a hands-on food lesson in your school or in your classroom, please stick around for the prizes.
Awesome. Naomi, I see you I spark. Cool. We'll look into that. Thank you. So thank you everyone so much for coming today. Simone we have been working on this project for, I don't know, 5 or so years now. And it's gone from a 120-page PDF that we weren't sure anybody was ever going to look at, and now it's this beautiful website, and it's been a very collaborative process, and there's been lots of different people who've guided and contributed to the project, so we're really excited to share it out provincially now. So thank you everyone. So again, if you have any questions, this is Simone.Jennings@interiorhealth.ca. She's a wonderful human, as you can tell. We've been working together for a while, always very warm and welcoming, and a wealth of knowledge. And as I said, for the Farm to School BC side, food literacy at farmtoschoolbc.ca, and you can get in touch with Kaylin about hands-on food. So unfortunately, she wasn't able to join us today, but she is available into the future. So handsonfood.ca, share it out. Thank you so much for joining us today.